so concludes a very successful homestand for the Yankees as they finished 7-2. Started off with the sweep against the Tigers, take 2 out of 3 against the Astros, and then take 2 out of 3 against the Nationals. The Yankees had been coming off an upsetting loss against Houston. The sweep obviously would have been great. Didn't happen. And Altuve hits the home run off of Green in the last game of the Houston series. Carrying into the Washington series, I figured that there might be a little bit of a hangover effect. Whether that happened or not is tough to say, especially in baseball. Game 1 would be a continuation of losing for the Yankees, and those were the 2 losses in this 9-game homestand that they would lose. So in the first game, it was Patrick Corbin against Jameson Taillon, and Miguel Andujar would make his first start of the season and his first ever appearance, I believe, in the majors at first base. Certainly his first start ever at first base. And defensively, I don't believe he made any mistakes. I don't think he had any tough plays, but it seemed like he did what he had to. In this one, as we've seen, Sanchez catches Taillon, and that kind of lines up because Higashioka had caught Cole the day before. But the Yankees, in this one, would actually get off to a good start. Keep in mind also Juan Soto, who had been out, would return against the Yanks. DJ LeMahieu, lead off, bottom of the first, home run to right. Yankee Stadium home run for LeMahieu, his first home run at the stadium this year to give the Yankees an early 1-0 lead. But then what you never want to do, I'll say this, beyond Cole, I think that the other starters have slowly improved for the most part. Some more than others. I think Taillon being one of them that has kind of slowly gotten better. But what I have seen from some of them is just when they're given the lead, they kind of give it right back. And this is just the one blemish inning. That's kind of what it's been. It's been like one bad inning for some of these pitchers, surrounded by mostly good pitching. So Josh Bell hits a homer to start that second inning. And then a 1-out walk by Kyle Schwarber. And then you have a 2-run homer by Yan Gomes. It's 3-1 Nationals at that point. After that, though, Taillon would retire the next 15 batters until a single by Starlin Castro in the 7th, and then Taillon would be taken out. So Taillon, with a couple of home runs in the 3rd, not what you want, but he really does settle down, like I said, as he retires 15 straight, goes 6 in the 3rd, gives up 3 hits, the 3 that I had mentioned, the 2 in the 2nd, the homers, and then the hit in the 7th. Those are his 3 runs, a walk, and 5 Ks. So overall, an outing that's going to keep your ball club in the game. And the Yankees would stay in the game. They would do just that. In the 2nd, immediately, Gary Sanchez hits a solo home run. So it's Sanchez's first homer since the 2nd game of the season. At this point in time, I'm thinking, well, Higgy's coming off a bit of a rough game. Sanchez homers, and I've made my preference clear that I am just so anti-Gary Sanchez that that's kind of what I'm happy when he helps the team. But at this point, I'm thinking, all right, well, Gary's has something to say in this catcher battle, and he homers to make it 3-2, cuts the lead. Not until the bottom of the 6th, Patrick Corbin did a pretty good job of holding the Yankees down, and we've seen this. Look, the Yankee offense, in my opinion, just, it's not been up to snuff, but you're not going to complain when you get wins. And DJ LeMahieu, another homer to right field, 2nd of the game, and it's good to see because LeMahieu, I think because we hold him to such a high standard, for me, there was some disappointment, but love to see the 2 homers. And when he's going, it really helps the team. And he found a way in the series to do more than he had. So the Yankees tied up at 3 right there. Wandy Peralta replaces Taillon in the 7th and gets a couple of strikeouts. Wandy Peralta's been very solid. Since that trade from San Francisco, the Mike Tauchman deal, Wandy Peralta's been excellent. So it's interesting. At this point in time, lefty-wise, with Zach Britton still on the shelf, Lucas Licky has performed admirably, and Wandy Peralta as well. And Justin Wilson, kind of the odd man out, but we'll talk about what he ends up doing in this series. And again, Yankee offense just kind of sputtering. So now in the top of the 8th is when things really unravel. Defensively and pitching-wise. And again, the bullpen had been good up until Chad Green and Justin Wilson kind of implode a bit the day before that last game against Houston. Loaizaga comes in for Wandy Peralta, gives up a single to Yadiel Hernandez, and then Aaron Judge just kind of misplays it in the outfield. So it goes from a single, and it should have been on first base, to now an error on Judge. Now it's run around second, no outs. Hernandez is pinch run for. Andrew Stevenson comes in for the Nationals. Robles hits a sac bunt, and not a good throw by DJ LeMahieu. An error on LeMahieu. So what could have been a completely different situation here is now first and third, no out. That's an issue, especially with Trey Turner coming up, and Trey Turner gave them problems pretty much the whole series, it felt like, and Turner gets an RBI single to take the lead 4-3. So, right there, just not a good job by Judge. The bunt should have been more easily executed, and first and third leads to a Turner RBI single. And then the big blow happens, and that's a 3-run homer by Josh Harrison. Makes it 7-3, and at that point, it felt over, and it would only get worse from there. Juan Soto would single, and then Josh Bell would strike out. They would bring in Luis Sessa, who to this point had been very good, as had Loaizaga, but it was a rough go for Sessa too, and his fielding and his defense behind him kind of betrayed him. 4-pitch walk to Castro, which you don't want. And I will say this, Sessa has been walking too many guys. That has been his bugaboo. If there is something this year, it's the walks. Absolutely. Then Kyle Schwarber singles. It's an RBI single to give the Nationals an 8-3 lead. Then Yan Gomes reaches on a Gleyber-Torres era, and it's 9-3 Washington. So just Gleyber, whose defense has improved, messes up on that play. So 3 errors that inning. Judge, LeMahieu, and Torres. And it would give the Nationals a 9-3 lead. And then in the ninth, for good measure, off of Sessa, a 2-run homer by Juan Soto to give the Nationals an 11-3 lead. With 2 out, it's funny, we saw a random RBI single by Clint Frazier earlier in the year. I think it was his first RBI. He kind of does it again. Another 2-out, kind of meaningless RBI single for Clint to cut the lead to 11-4, but that's all it would be. So the Nationals win, like I said, 11-4. And, 2-game losing streak at this point for the Yanks. Ugly on the defensive side. The Loaizaga-Sessa combo fails, just like the Green-Wilson combo failed the previous day. But good to see LeMahieu get a couple of homers, and also Giancarlo Stanton's hitting streak comes to an end. If memory serves, he did hit a couple of shots. So that's just what's going to happen. A little bit of bad luck on his part. So the hitting streak comes to an end at 12. And really a rough night for Aaron Judge. Going 0-4 with 2 strikeouts and that big error. So now we go to the second game. And this one had a long rain delay. Really long. Maybe 2.5 hours long. And it was weird because it didn't seem like it was raining too badly, but they waited it out. What do you know? 2.5 hour rain delay is the game that goes to extra innings. It's kind of how it always goes. So it was a long day at the stadium. And a very interesting pitching matchup between Max Scherzer and Corey Kluber. Now, if this had been a matchup 3-4 years ago, that's must-see TV. I'll say this, though. Max Scherzer still has it, clearly, based on this one. And Corey Kluber has been... This was technically a step back from his amazing outing against the Tigers, but just generally speaking, Kluber is doing better in his last 3 or so starts. So in this one, as you'd expect, Higashioka, who's been behind the plate with Kluber, back in there. They go with Ford instead of Andujar. Aaron Hicks gets a day off, so Gardner was in center field. In this one, really pitching kind of ruled the day here. In the top of the third, Kluber gets into a little bit of trouble. With him, walks have been an issue for someone who has had pinpoint accuracy in his career. It's a 1-out single for Alex Avila, then a single for Victor Robles it was a bunt single. Then Trey Turner gets another single, but it was hit too hard to score a run. So it's basically 1 out. And then Josh Harrison, it's a ground ball to DJ LeMahieu, which I felt like with Juan Soto on deck, kind of thought he'd go around the horn for a 5-4-3 double play. He takes the short at home, which I may not have done. And then Kluber, it's a bases loaded walk to Juan Soto. That's one of the rare situations where I actually didn't mind it. With Ryan Zimmerman on deck, you don't want Juan Soto hitting one out of the park. So that is kind of the one situation where, all right, you kind of live with it. So it gives the Nationals a 1-0 lead. But as we've seen, for better or worse, this one helps the Yankees where the response is immediate, and it's Kyle Higashioka with a solo shot. So Sanchez homers the first game. Higgy comes back with a home run in the second game, ties it up at 1. And it would stay that way until the top of the sixth, where Kluber basically cruising, pitch count's getting up there, and with 2 outs and no one on, it's a double to Kyle Schwarber, and then Starlin Castro, the former Yankee, with an RBI single to give the Nationals a 2-1 lead. Now, Chad Green was warming up. They left Kluber in. I was okay with that. I could have went either way with that. I'm not going to bash that move. And, it doesn't work out. So Green finishes up the inning. So it's 2-1. And then Green pitches a scoreless 7th. So Green gets 4 outs. And Lucas Licky pitches the 8th and goes 1-2-3. Licky, again, continues to pitch really well. I believe in his last 9 innings, he hasn't given up a run. So what was kind of just like a spring training phenomenon situation is turning into real production in the regular season. In the bottom of the 8th, Clint Frazier would lead off walk, then Mike Ford would fly out, and that would be it for Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer goes out of control, pitching 7 1/3 innings, 2 hits. Just a hit against LeMahieu, which, was that in the first inning? I think it might have been. No, it wasn't. That was not in the first. That occurred in the third, right? The same inning that Higashioka homered. Just 2 hits, the Higashioka homer, the walk to Frazier, and 14 strikeouts. So again, speaks to the Yanks. And, within that, I believe Gleyber and Gardner, I think, struck out 3. They were notables. I believe they struck out 3 times against Scherzer, if memory serves. At least they did in the full game. So Scherzer comes out of the game, and Daniel Hudson is able to strike out Higashioka looking. And then Andujar pinch hits for Tyler Wade, and Andujar grounds out, which we did see a lot of Andujar grounding out in the series. So fast forward to the 9th. Actually, Licky pitched 2 innings. So it was actually 2 scoreless innings from Licky with a couple of strikeouts. So even better, actually. So he holds it down, keeps it 2-1. And that's a good job by him. And he is trusted. And why shouldn't he be? He's been great. So now Brad Hand comes in for the Nationals, who's been, I believe he had a 0 ERA to that point this year. But if you remember last year in the playoffs, in Game 2 against Cleveland, the Yankees, DJ LeMahieu specifically, got a game-winning RBI single up the middle. I believe that was a blown save. So I forget the particulars, but the Yankees have had success offhand, and LeMahieu, Stanton, and Judge had pretty good career numbers off him. And what you don't want to do is it's a leadoff walk for DJ to start that 9th inning. And I will say this, DJ seems to be walking more on a per-at-bat basis this year than I think we've seen. Maybe a little bit more strikeouts as well, but he is walking just a little bit more. Then Giancarlo Stanton hits a sharp ground ball to third. I think what happened there was Castro might have bobbled it. I remember thinking at the time that maybe that could have been a double play, but luckily it was not. Luckily, LeMahieu goes to second. They get the out at first. So it's a runner on second, 1 out, and then Aaron Judge singles to right down the line. It was a tough play. And at the time, I was hoping that DJ would score there. He was kind of playing it halfway, and I'm not sure whether it was Nevin's fault. No one made that big of a deal about it, but I kind of felt as if DJ should have scored here. Luckily, it did not come back to bite them. First and third, 1 out, and a very clutch RBI single to right field by Gleyber Torres. And I'll say this, Torres, as much as I think that he has struggled, and this weekend he comes up big on a few instances, he has had some timely hits that I can think back to. He really has. A big game-tying hit at Tampa, where the Yankees would eventually win. A game-tying hit in the 9th at Baltimore, which unfortunately was a ground rule double. They would lose that game. But even though the power hasn't been there and the batting average is lower than I think we'd like, he has been a fairly clutch source when they've needed him most. Unfortunately, after that, Aaron Hicks would pinch hit for Brett Gardner and strike out, and then Clint Frazier would ground out. Clint hits that home run the other day in the loss to Houston, but been a little bit disappointing, more than disappointing, that Clint Frazier really just hasn't quite gotten it going this year. So now we head to the 10th, and Aroldis Chapman comes in. And Chapman, as I've said numerous times, he's just a lot better in a clean inning. And I think the Yankees know this. It made sense to bring him in, of course. There's no questioning that decision, but he is better just in a straight-up 9th inning situation, or if extra innings were like they used to be. In this runner on second situation, we saw it a little bit last year, and he's just not the same. but luckily it didn't go out of control. So Victor Robles gets a single, so immediately it's first and third. Then Trey Turner gets a sac fly. Robles steals second. Josh Harrison strikes out. They intentionally walk Soto, and then Zimmerman strikes out. Like I always say, if you just give up one run, that's doable, because now you have runner on second, no out. So that was key there. Would you have liked Chapman to just not give up anything? Of course. But it looked like it had the potential of something more than that. But he was able to escape at 3-2. So now we head to the bottom of the 10th. Frazier's on second, because he had made the last out in the ninth, and Mike Ford is up. And Ford, which I agreed with, tried to lay down a bunt, and it was foul. And then the next three pitches, he tried, but he pulled back each time, and they were balls. So now the count's 3-1. And so I'm not sure if Hand thought that maybe he would try to bunt again. Well, he puts one right down the middle, and Ford smacks it in the shortstop hole, and the Yankees tie the game up. RBI single Mike Ford, who had been struggling mightily, gets a really big hit right there to tie the game up in the 10th. And I thought the whole approach made sense. Didn't work out, but I think that it was the right thing the whole way through. So that ties it up right there, and that's it for Brad Hand. So Brad Hand, terrible in the fact that he blew it in the 9th, and then he blows it again in the 10th. And he wouldn't be done there in this series. So Kyle Finnegan comes in, gets Kyle Higashioka to ground out, Miguel Andujar to pop up, and DJ LeMahieu to strike out. So we go to the 11th, and in comes Justin Wilson, who, out of everyone, he's been the worst guy in that pen all year. Absolutely. In terms of, not counting Nick Nelson, who's been down, in terms of someone that's one of the regulars, Justin Wilson's dropped in the pecking order. But Wilson came up large. He would strike out Josh Bell, Kyle Schwarber flies out, and then Starlin Castro strikes out looking. So he doesn't give up a run. That's big. So now you go to the bottom of the inning just needing to advance that runner from second. So Justin Wilson, underrated job there to put the Yankees, in a spot where they had a good chance. So Tanner Rainey comes in, and he's all over the place. Giancarlo Stanton walks. Aaron Judge walks. So that sets up bases loaded, no outs. They bring in a fifth infielder. Doesn't matter. Gleyber Torres, it's a soft ground ball to the pitcher, and there's nothing they can do. As LeMahieu would score, and the Yankees win the game 4-3. And so Gleyber, that wasn't pretty, but it's at least he put the ball in play, and sometimes that happens. So Gleyber ties it up in the 9th, wins it in the 11th, and that would be the Yankees' first walk-off win of the season. A long day at the stadium, they win it 4-3, but they wouldn't be done with their walk-off ways. Let's head to the last game of the series. This one would be between Joe Ross and Domingo Germán. Gary Sanchez got the start behind the plate, which I wasn't surprised about. Higashioka had been catching Germán, but I think with the long day Saturday, it kind of made sense that Sanchez was going to be behind the plate. And keep in mind, again, he did homer on Friday, and I wasn't shocked by it. Aaron Judge would get the day off. Been scuffling a bit, although we did get that big hit in the 9th. He would sit out. And then Andujar would be back in the lineup, this time at third. And Aaron Hicks back in the number 3 hole, which the reason for that is that Judge was out, but we hadn't seen him there in a while. And in this game, the Yanks would be the ones to jump out to the early lead, as in the 3rd. It's a leadoff walk for Brett Gardner, something that you don't want to do. Then LeMahieu flies out, Stanton walks, and then Aaron Hicks rips an RBI single. Good job by Aaron Hicks. First and second, one out. He is coming around a bit. Again, Hicks is someone that's going to be frustrating. You certainly don't want him batting third, but got to give him credit. Seems like he's doing a little bit better lately. So the Yankees make it 1-0. Then Gleyber grounds out, and Gary Sanchez strikes out. He would strike out 3 times today. So the hat trick for Gary Sanchez. Don't think we have to worry too much in terms of things changing a whole lot at the catcher position, as I still think Higgy's going to see, kind of that 60% share or so of the starts. Yeah, I mean, Germán really doing very well for the majority of this game. Bottom of the 6th, Joe Ross still in the game, and Gleyber Torres hits his first home run of the season. It finally happened on May 9th. Gleyber Torres gets his first homer, and no doubter, to left, and gives the Yankees a 2-0 lead. That's good to see, and Torres' overall numbers weren't great in this series, but some really impactful hits that hopefully can get him going. And so the Yankees take a 2-0 lead, but we see it again, where that next inning, the Yankees make it a 2-0 lead, and Herman, who had been fantastic to that point, gives up a leadoff double to Josh Bell. Then Starlin Castro pops out, and then Kyle Schwarber hits a deep home run to right field, a 2-run shot to tie the game up at 2. And that would be it for Domingo Germán. His 80th pitch, Michael King had been warming up, who we hadn't seen in a long time. I had no problem with Germán being in there at that point in the game, and Germán, ends up going 6 1/3, 5 hits, those 2 runs, a walk, and 6 strikeouts. So the line is good, but he goes out on a sour note, and so that ties it up at 2. Michael King would come in, would give up a single to Yan Gomes, but then he gets a double play. We are tied, and in the top of the 8th, it would be more Mike King, who would get a ground out of Victor Robles, Trey Turner singles, Josh Harrison flies out. They bring in Wandy Peralta for the lefty Juan Soto, gets a pop out immediately. So Wandy Peralta, again, he's doing his job as a lefty specialist. He's been great. Michael King was able to navigate through. I hope to still see Michael King on the Major League roster, because I think he's been good enough and he deserves that. The bullpen in this game does the job. In the top of the 9th, it would be Aroldis Chapman, who would give up a 1-out single to Starlin Castro, who had a pretty good series against the Yanks. But a good inning from Chapman. He gets the strikeout to end the inning of Yan Gomes. It's a scoreless inning, and we head to the bottom of the 9th, tied, and the Yankees with another chance to walk off. And who comes in? The Yankee savior, Brad Hand. So Hand, who really is a huge contributing factor to the loss in the second game, it's a 4-pitch leadoff walk to Tyler Wade. I mean, that is a way to lose if I've ever seen one. The lefty-lefty matchup, he walks Wade. Then Aaron Judge pinch hits for Gardner and works out a good at-bat and draws a walk. So it's first and second. DJ LeMahieu hits what could have been a 5-4-3 double play. Luckily, he beats the Rap at first. So they get the out at second, but that was really big that it ends up being first and third, 1 out. So DJ, again, there just have been instances with runners from position where we're just not seeing that league best guy. How the series ends is the guy who I would say was the star of the homestand, Giancarlo Stanton, scorches an RBI single to left field, and they go crazy. They win the game, they win the series, and it's a really positive note to end the homestand. And now the Yankees head to Tampa to start a 10-game road trip. So this is a 3 games at Tampa, 3 at Baltimore, and then 4 at Texas. They've already been to Tampa. They've already been to Baltimore, and Texas will be the first time they play them. So, but I think we all have our eyes set on this Rays series, and confidence for me is still low when it comes to Tampa. They have injuries, as they always kind of do, but they're scrappy as could be. And in looking at these potential pitching matchups, we know that for the Yankees, it'll be Montgomery, Cole, and Tyone. For Tampa, sounds like it's going to be Luis Patino, who's going to start the first game. He was involved in the Blake Snell trade from the Padres. So Patino is probably going to go maybe at most 3 or 4 innings. So it's going to be a bit of a bullpen game, and we don't know what the next 2 games will hold. The one thing I'm questioning is Tyler Glasnow could pitch that last game, but Tampa has a day off tomorrow. He wouldn't be in line to unless they absolutely wanted it to happen. We're going to see some combination, like I said, of Patino, Ryan Yarborough, maybe Josh Fleming, and definitely Rich Hill. And then maybe Glasnow. I'm almost thinking that we might not, but if he does pitch, it'd be Thursday. Here's how I look at this. They need to win that middle game Garrett Cole start. Absolutely. That needs to be a win. And then you hope to somehow split the Montgomery and Tyone games. Montgomery had already pitched at Tampa, was not great. It was like a 4-run, 6-inning type performance. And then I believe he did pitch one of the Yankee Stadium games, I think. Not positive. But I believe he did. And of course, they got swept in that series. He did pitch really well against Tampa in the playoffs last year. But I also remember a game in the regular season last year where he was awful. So Tampa knows Montgomery. expectations for me are not high. I would be thrilled if they win that series in any form. 2 out of 3 would be amazing. But if you told me that we win 1 out of 3, honestly, I wouldn't be that upset. Obviously, I wouldn't be happy about it, but I could live with going 1 and 2 here if they can then go to Baltimore and go to Texas and take care of business. Within this 10-game road trip, yeah, I will be 6 and 4. I'd be happy with. 7 and 3 would be thrilled. Gonna be a good test. We'll see what happens. And yeah, this is gonna be a really big Tampa series as they are 1 and 5 and in recent history have really struggled against this team. So big test. And guess who's coming back? As the Yankees sent down Miguel Andujar after the game, Luke Voit makes his season debut for the Yankees in Tampa.